As she was getting up, she stood on my face. He had to put his hand in my throat and pulling all chunks of blood out. I saw myself coming out of the ambulance, getting carried out of the ambulance. I think it was a near-death experience. I started horse riding when I was 6 years old, so horses were my life really. I was quite a loud, outgoing person, lots of friends. We all used to, be in a bit of a group, used to go out riding together, used to go to shows together as well. I was quite competitive. I had my own horse, used to do a lot of show jumping with her and dressage as well. I've had a few falls before, a few knocks. Before this accident, I had another quite a bad accident. I fell off one of my friend's horses, just in the jumping field. I was on her horse going over a jump and she'd turned in midair. I obviously came off the side of her and I'd fractured my spine in 2 places, but nothing as serious as this one that I had. So it happened on Boxing Day 2002. We all went for a Boxing Day ride. I think there was about 12 of us. This was a planned event which we did every year with the farm. And there was families and friends walking with dogs as well. Yeah, it was a really nice, picturesque coastal area where we were riding. I didn't think that day was anything bad was going to happen at all. It was literally just a hack which we went on every day, just an everyday thing. It was a hard, frosty day though, so I was thinking we were going to have to be careful. It was cold but it was like a nice blue day as well, like a nice bright blue day. Nice weather for riding. So I had no idea my life was gonna change forever. I was galloping up the galloping bank on Amber. She'd stumbled and then she went down, I went over the top of her. And as she was getting up, she stood on my face. And then obviously the farmer had got off his horse, because he saw that I was going blue, turned me over, ended up he had to put his hand in my throat and because I wasn't breathing, pulling all chunks of blood out. If the farmer hadn't have done that, I would have been a goner, definitely. Yeah. If he hadn't have thought on to clear my airways, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be here right now. Yeah. Next minute, the farmer's daughter had galloped off to meet my mum and dad because they were quite a bit behind us walking the dog, and said they needed to get up to the galloping bank quickly because I'd come off my horse. My dad had said, "She'll be fine, tell her to get back on, she'll be fine." And Jenny, the farmer's daughter, had said, "No, it's serious, you need to come now." So my mum and dad had obviously come as quickly as they could with my brother. And I think my mum had stayed behind with my brother because my brother was only young then. And my dad had obviously saw me. He said, "Oh yeah, it's bad." And obviously all my nose had been like smashed in and obviously all this was all open. And I'd gasped for air, but I was unconscious. The condition that I was in, every second that I was laid there was very crucial. So when the accident happened, I just can't remember anything. The only recollection that I have is from what family and friends have told me. And I can't even imagine like what was going through their minds, like when they saw me in the state that I was. On Quarry Lane, down the bottom of the farm, there's normally an ambulance parked there. So when they'd rang for the ambulance, it only had to come to Uplee them and then to the top of the field, like along some tracks on the top of a field. If it wasn't for this, it might have worked out differently. Ambulance had come and then took me to James Cook Hospital, and I saw myself coming out of the ambulance, getting carried out of the ambulance, and my dad as well, and the nurses, paramedics. And I was shouting, I couldn't move out of my spot, and I was shouting my dad. He couldn't hear me, no one could hear me. And I just saw myself getting taken into the hospital. I think it was a near-death experience. It was obviously me out of my own body, my soul leaving my body maybe. Yeah, I totally believe that. I was nearly a goner. Yeah. So they'd put me in an induced coma, and I was in that coma for 8 days. But after 5 days, they'd lowered the dose or something where I'd be able to come out of the coma. But it took me another 3 days to actually wake up. They didn't know if I was going to end up coming out of my coma, how I'd be when I woke up, whether it would have affected like my brain. They got told if I did come out of my coma, I'd probably be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. They just didn't know how my brain was gonna be if I did come out of my coma. She'd broke my jaw and I had to have stitches in the bottom and top gums. My nose had totally collapsed, so this middle bit had like just totally collapsed, and obviously some of this had come off as well, and obviously this had been totally cut open. I don't know if this is when I was in a coma or what, or when I'd come out of it. 2 old men and 2 old women used to sit beside my bed. I remember it being real dark, and 2 old men and 2 old women used to sit beside my bed and holding my hands or hands on me and tell me everything was going to be all right. But my mum's let me know that there was no relatives, no friends doing this. So I can't really explain that one. When I'd come out of my coma, I ended up going to West Lane Hospital, where I was like for rehabilitation, literally to help me, because I'd forgotten how to dress myself, how to wash myself and brush my teeth, in what order to do it all in. So it's literally starting from like being a toddler again. And so the total time I was in hospital was for 3 weeks. So after the accident, I was off school for about 4 months. Someone used to come out to our house and teach me 2 add 2 and basic maths and English and things again, just to get me a bit more up to speed with things. It definitely affected my performance at school, because when I did actually go back, I was only 2.5 days a week, and I was just worn out after them half days. I couldn't take anything in, what the teacher was saying. Didn't understand really of what was being taught to me. So I was there literally just to be around people, just to get me used to being around people again. So I didn't end up doing my GCSEs, but I'd already got a Saturday job at Contemporary at Gisborough by this point. And I just remember one morning when I was at my mum and dad's, going downstairs, looking in the mirror and saying, "What's happened to my face?" And then mum had to tell me what had happened. But then I just thought, oh well, I'll just have to get on with it. Obviously a lot to take in when you can't actually remember what's happened to you, you know. When I was able to go out without my mum and dad, my best friend at the time and my cousin actually took me round to my ex-boyfriend's house just to see if I could remember him, or if I could remember any of the past or anything like that, if it would jog any memory. But I didn't know who he was. I can't remember going out with him. I think what got me through recovery was my parents, my brother, my friends, my other family members, pushing me along. I didn't really have that much emotion. Like I said, I didn't cry for about a year, just because nothing would get to me or nothing would upset me, anything like that. Obviously, my family's always been there for me all throughout my life. But when it did happen, I had real bad anger issues afterwards. It was the head injury what I had. So that must have been really hard for my parents, having to deal with me the way I was. I did get put on tablets for it to try and help me calm, which did work. I don't have these issues these days though. But yeah, my parents have always been there for me 100%, always been real close. But I've had 2 rounds of surgery. I think the first round was to put this middle bit back upright of my nose. So I've got a scar coming up my nose. I've had all this stitched along here, and my jaws I've had stitched as well. And then I did cut my lip open because I've got a scar there as well. But then I've had surgery since then to pull, I think it was from behind my ear. They've pulled skin to make, obviously more skin to make a little bit more of a nostril and to smooth this bit out, because this was all like a jumbled up scar before, where it's a little bit smoother now. And they did say I could go and have more surgery on it, but I'm not bothered. I've got a scar from a thing that I loved, so it's never bothered me. It's a war wound, you know. I've got living proof that I've been in an accident. Riding wise, I think it was probably 6 months since when I got back on the horse. Horses are so unpredictable. There's always that thought there of coming off and really hurting yourself. It could happen any day, but I did not expect like an accident like that to happen to me and affect my life in the way it has. They did say I shouldn't really ride ever again, because it could actually kill me if I did fall off again. But you could easily get run over in the street. So I was obviously going to get back on the horse. This is what I've got from the accident is nothing compared to like what I went through, what my family went through, not knowing if I was going to come out of my coma or not, if I was actually going to be here today like I am. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I feel as though I've come a hell of a long way to what I was then and to what I am now.
All of my bones were broken. I could hear bone ends grating. My body was screaming in pain. I knew if I moved, I'd keep skidding and fall another 800 meters to my death.